Good evening. In about an hour's time, the Champions League quarter-final will kick off at Arsenal's Emirates Stadium. They're playing Bayern Munich. Nothing unusual about that, you may think. But there has been a direct threat to this game from ISIS. Now, we have seen ISIS attacks on football grounds in France. Twice it happened there. I do not recall this kind of threat ever being made to a football ground in the United Kingdom. And I wonder, given that 60,000 people were due to turn up to watch this game tonight, what is actually happening? So why don't we go live to the Emirates Stadium to join GB News' Charlie Peters. Charlie, what's happening, and has this affected the size of the crowd?
Well, the Met have said this afternoon, Nigel, that a robust policing plan is in place for tonight's fixture. They've pointed out that the terror threat in the country right now is substantial, which means that an attack is likely. They say that they are working with their colleagues in counter-terrorism policing and have sought to reassure the public with their strategy. At the same time, they have asked members of the public here to be vigilant and report anything that happens. I've spoken to some officers on the ground here, and they have said that nothing that they're doing today is out of the ordinary for a normal police strategy for a fixture of this significance. There's no additional measures being taken in light of that threat published by ISIS-aligned media today. And I've also spoken to some Arsenal fans earlier this evening who said that they were not going to let that threat get in the way of their first Champions League quarter-final since 2010.
Slightly nervous, I guess, but you can't let these people ruin your lives. So, you know, it's a big quarter-final. We're not having a quarter-final with Arsenal since 2010, so, you know, you can't not go as a result. So, yeah.
Because I saw a lot of news about ISIS, about terrorism, and lots of them, nearly 90% of them are fake. So, you know, London is a great city. I trust in the officers, the safety guys. So yeah.
Grand. You know, I've come over from Ireland today, and I used to live here, and we had threats growing up, and you just have to get on with life, and just you can walk down the street and anything can happen to you, so you just have to keep going and hope for the best.
Well, there are other fixtures taking place tonight and tomorrow in the Champions League. The Spanish sports minister has urged calm for those fixtures in Madrid, saying that some 2,000 officers from the police and the civil guards will be on duty. But by contrast, in France, the Interior Minister has put the threat level up to maximum. It was raised to that level after the terrorist attack in Moscow earlier last month, killing 137 there, ISIS claiming that attack. They say that their police presence for the fixture in Paris has been considerably reinforced.
What's interesting, Charlie, I mean, we saw some very stoic responses there from Arsenal supporters. You know, life must go on, and I totally get that, and I'm with them. But when you say that the policing is robust, but there's no extra added effort, does that mean the police perhaps are not taking this threat too seriously?
It might suggest, alternatively, that the security services have more information on this threat than we've been let on. Of course, ISIS conducts not just its offensive operations, but also information operations. They want to spread that fear. They want to make people feel as though a threat could appear at any moment. And so sharing, as they have done, all of those photos of the stadiums, it's almost certainly going to be the case, want to instill that concern across the continent. But it's also worth noting, as the French have done in light of their considerable reinforcement, that they noted that 10 days ago, ISIS on their aligned media platforms did share a photo of Bayern Munich Stadium. So Bayern Munich are playing here tonight, and it's very much a case that in Europe, the security agencies and the police are taking these threats significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie Peters, thank you. Stay there. Come back to us if anything changes, please. Well, I'm joined down the line by Martin Gallagher, former police superintendent with Police Scotland and a football match commander. Now, of course, policing any big football match is not a very easy job. We had Celtic v Rangers recently, which many joked would mean that the new hate speech laws in Scotland might have to be instigated in full. How How do you, Martin, how do you assess a threat like this? Do you take it seriously? Do you just carry on as normal? What will the police be doing that's different to normal?
Well, good evening, Nigel. Thanks for having me on and giving me this opportunity. First off, I think we have to acknowledge that the police in the UK and the continent are very experienced in these matters. I mean, it's not as if Islamic State appeared recently. This is a threat that's existed for over a decade now, and threats beforehand. So the measures have been put in place over time through experience, which will robustly respond to this threat. I think that, myself as a match commander, these are the sort of, the overall threat is one that we've put measures in place to deal with. And tonight, as the cops on the ground were saying to your reporter, nothing's dramatically different because we're used to this and we're working against this background. I think that one concern will no doubt be that the call to arms, for want of a better term, inspires the individual. That's the one thing that's very hard to guard against, as you know yourself, and this will be very alert to that.
Yeah, I was at the Euro final a couple of years back, England v Italy, where we had some pretty appalling scenes of, well, I guess mass drunkenness or drugness and people smashing down barriers and climbing into, getting into the ground without tickets. It was the worst sporting event I've ever been to. What is the trick with dealing with a mass crowd? I mean, let's say some sort of incident did occur and there was mass panic. How do the police control a mass of people?
Okay, so there's emergency procedures well worked to evacuate a ground. So if anything significant occurs, then the police, and particularly the well-developed safety measures that grounds have through their safety officers and stewards, will have rehearsed and will implement if necessary. Yeah. And I'd like to put people's minds at rest of that. That's something that's well practiced, well drilled, and well understood, both between the ground themselves and the police in support of that, and other emergency services. So I wouldn't have a concern there, And in terms of when you're at the game, it's be alert. That's why I mentioned that individual. That if something's suspicious, report it to a police officer or a steward.
Presumably, people going into a ground will have to go through metal detectors, have some basic checks?
Yes. I was at the Aston Villa game on Saturday and had that, Nigel. So it's nothing unusual to be going through that. Those measures have been in place for years. Yeah.
All right, well, I take your words, Martin, as words of reassurance. And back to Celtic v Rangers. How on earth do you police a game like that where there's such enmity between the two groups of supporters?
So I was never a match commander for a Celtic Rangers game. I've match commanded Celtic games or I've match commanded Rangers games, but never together. I never had that privilege. In terms of dealing with that level of support, you've got to remember at the ground at the weekend, there were no away supporters. So so for some time, there's been no away support on the ground, which makes it far easier to manage. Next season, we return to an away support of 5%, and that will bring a different dynamic. But again, the officers that are used to command these games are built up through the ranks and looking after these games, and are well trained to deal with it. But I appreciate your comment about the hate legislation. That's a whole new dynamic.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We'll talk about that another time. Martin, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening, and we will cross our fingers and hope and pray that everything goes off at the Emirates without any incident at all.